Welcome to the Small Biz Junkie podcast.
Great to be here.
Today we're doing a deep dive into a truly foundational book. It's Edward Bernays' Crystallizing Public Opinion.
Foundational is definitely the word. I mean, written way back in the 1920s, updated a bit in the 30s, right?
Exactly, almost a century ago. And yet,
the insights into public perception, how influence works, they're still incredibly sharp. Really makes you think.
it really does. And, for you, the learner listening in, maybe you want to get a solid handle on these big ideas without getting totally bogged down.
Right, you want the core stuff distilled.
That's the plan. We've pulled out the key nuggets from Bernays, our mission today. Unpack these core ideas about public relations, PR, and see how they still apply now.
Sounds good. Where should we start? Maybe with how Bernays himself saw PR evolving.
Good idea. He mentions in his 1934 foreword, just 10 years before that, it became obvious that big companies had to care about public opinion.
Yeah, he says those that didn't basically face public intervention, the public wouldn't stand for being ignored anymore.
And he saw the profession grow massively, didn't he? From what he called
circus agent stunts. Yeah.
Right. From that to being this really important position influencing world affairs even, that's a huge leap.
A massive leap. But what's really interesting is he insisted the basic principles, they hadn't changed.
Even with all that growth.
He felt they were still valid, especially, he said, with the new partnership of government, labor, and industry. He saw things getting more complex, more interconnected.
So he was really trying to make it more rigorous. He talks about fostering a scientific attitude towards the study of public relations.
Exactly. Not just guesswork or flashy tricks. He wanted it grounded in understanding how people actually think, how groups behave. He was drawing on psychology, sociology.
Looking at the mechanics underneath it all.
Precisely. He wanted to understand the drivers.
So central to this is the Public Relations Council. What did that mean to Bernays?
Okay, so he defined the council as basically an interpreter, someone who explains the client to the public.
Okay.
But also, crucially, interprets the public back to the client. It's a two-way street.
So not just putting out messages, but also listening and understanding the public mood.
Exactly. And their advice wasn't just about ads or press releases. It covered everything the client did in public. Actions, ideas, the whole package.
Across all the media they had back then.
Every channel. Print, speeches, lectures, the stage, even the pulpit he mentions. Newspapers, photos, radio was coming in, mail.
Wow, that's comprehensive.
It really was.
Yeah.
He wanted a holistic approach.
He gives some great examples. Let's talk about that New York hotel one with the rumor it was closing.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic. Business was dropping off because people thought it was closing, just denying it wasn't working.
Right, because people hear denials all the time. So what did the council suggest?
Something clever. They had this really popular maitre d'hotel. Everyone knew him, loved him. The council said, renew his contract. Make it 5 years. Give him a big salary and tell everyone about it. Publicize it.
Okay, I see. It's not just words. It's a concrete action.
Exactly. It's positive proof. It says, we're investing long-term in someone you value.
Yeah.
It completely undercut the rumor.
And it worked.
Like a charm. Cancellations stopped. The rumor died. It showed the hotel's real intentions. Powerful stuff.
Okay, another one. A magazine wanted to boost its prestige, reach those high-value advertisers.
Right. They had good stuff, good editorial content, but it wasn't getting noticed by the right people.
So did the council suggest like a big ad campaign?
No, something more subtle. They found an article the magazine had already published, something about how dull routine is more draining than high-pressure work. An interesting idea.
Okay.
So they arranged for another physician through a medical journal to basically use that article as the basis for an inquiry among top business and professional people.
So they engineered a situation where the target audience, the quality public, would naturally focus on that specific article and therefore the magazine.
Precisely. It amplified their existing strength, made sure the right people saw the value, not just more readers, the right readers for those advertisers.
Very strategic, and it worked.
Boosted the magazine's standing significantly. And there was another example with that same magazine, wasn't there? Something humanitarian.
Yes, the famine article, The Madonna of the Hungry Child.
Right, by Sir Philip Gibbs. Instead of just letting it sit there after publication, the council took it directly to Herbert Hoover, who was leading relief efforts.
Yeah, and Hoover.
He was apparently really moved by it, sent a commendation, shared it with his relief committees.
So it helped the relief effort and the magazine's reputation simultaneously.
Exactly. Again, making the important content they already had really land, making it felt and appreciated by influential people.
Let's shift gears slightly. The bacon example.
Yeah.
That sounds more
Oh.
commercial.
It is, but the principle's similar. A big packing house wanted to sell more bacon, not just their bacon, but all bacon. Increase the whole market.
Okay, how do you do that?
The council's idea was get doctors to talk about the health benefits of a hearty breakfast. They commissioned a physician survey.
So promote the idea of a big breakfast. Knowing bacon is a key part of that for many people.
You got it. Promote the underlying dietary concept, and the product naturally benefits. If people believe a hearty breakfast is good, bacon sales go up. And they did. It linked the product to this accepted idea of health.
Simple but effective. Bernays also gives examples that are less about products and more about national sentiment, like boosting Italian morale.
Yeah, during the launch of a ship, the Piave, they didn't just launch it. They invited prominent Italian Americans. They got photos and news stories sent to Italian papers. They even had famous figures like Enrico Caruso send telegrams back to Italy.
Creating a sense of connection and support from America.
Exactly. Boosting morale through showing American cooperation and shared pride. Using respected figures and media strategically.
And the one about reintegrating soldiers after the war. Addressing unemployment.
That was a serious problem. The council's approach involved appealing to personal and local pride. They created these citations, signed by top officials, for businesses that promised to rehire veterans.
So a public recognition.
Yes, and then they organized a coordinated display. The Fifth Avenue Association in New York displayed these citations on Bastille Day. It was very visible.
Creating a powerful example for other businesses across the country to follow.
Exactly. It used tangible recognition and social influence, not just asking, but showing and celebrating commitment.
These examples are fascinating, and some are even broader, like trying to shape the perception of entire countries. Lithuania wanting recognition. That sounds huge.
It was a massive undertaking. Lithuania wasn't well known in America, faced opposition, needed sympathy and official recognition. The council set up a national council and information bureau.
Like a dedicated PR agency for the country.
Essentially. They did deep research, then tailored information for specific groups. Ethnologists, linguists, sports fans, women's groups, jewelers interested in amber, music lovers, even senators and representatives directly.
Wow, really micro-targeting.
Totally. They planned events, mass meetings, pilgrimages, used every channel available to build interest and support. Bernays called it advertising a nation to freedom.
And it worked. They got recognition.
They did. It shows the power of a sustained, strategic, multi-channel campaign built on deep audience understanding.
In Romania, too, making its history known.
Similar idea. They had these scholarly documents about their ancient history, but nobody was reading them. Too dry.
So the council
advised turning them into interesting news stories, make it engaging. Suddenly, people were reading about Romania, it became part of popular knowledge. It's about framing.
It really underscores understanding the audience and the medium, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Even tackling a negative perception, like New York City being seen as cold and inhospitable. That required analyzing why people felt that way first, then devising a counter strategy.
And the example with the King and Queen of Belgium visiting.
That was about demonstrating American unity and affection. Staging that performance at the Met with all the different nationalist groups showing support, it created this powerful visual picture.
A picture that got sent around the world through news and photos.
Exactly, a symbol of unity.
And even supporting the League of Nations, forming that women's committee.
Yeah, bringing together diverse groups under a nonpartisan banner to make a unified appeal. It gave voice to a strong but maybe passive sentiment, made it articulate.
So looking at all these examples, the council's job isn't always about inventing something totally new.
Often it isn't. It's about taking existing elements, a popular figure, a good article, a historical fact, a latent public feeling, and making it resonate, making it visible, understandable, and influential.
Okay. This seems like a good moment to remind our listeners, if you're finding these insights into public perception useful for your own business or projects, you can find more resources and deep dives like this over at www.smallbizjunkie.com.
Definitely worth checking out.
So all this work Bernays described, it really highlights the growing importance of public opinion, doesn't it?
Hugely. He argues that by the 30s, you could feel the pressure of public judgment everywhere. Politics, industry, social issues, even science and religion weren't immune.
And he saw specific reasons for this.
Yeah, he pointed to three big trends. First, small groups were merging into bigger, more powerful organizations. Think unions, trade associations.
Okay, more organized groups.
Second, the public itself was changing. More literacy, more democracy meant people expected to be informed, expected to have a voice.
They wouldn't just be told what to do or think anymore.
Right. And third, just intense competition. Everyone was competing for public attention and favor.
That example of the American journalists at the Versailles Peace Conference.
Oh yeah, demanding access. A big contrast to the old way of doing diplomacy behind closed doors. It showed that shift in expectations. The public, through the press, demanded to know.
And he quotes Walter Lippmann.
About the revolution in the art of creating consent. Lippmann saw persuasion becoming this deliberate, self-conscious art. That's a powerful idea.
It really is. So institutions that used to ignore the public just couldn't anymore. Railroads, utilities.
They had to start paying attention. And governments, too, realizing that world opinion mattered for their own success, like we saw with Lithuania.
And in business, it wasn't just about the product.
No, competition forced them to think about everything. How they treated workers, factory conditions, all of it fed into public perception. You had to build a favorable reaction on multiple fronts.
Which leads us right into understanding the public. Bernays talks a lot about group psychology, the herd mentality.
This is absolutely key to his thinking. Public opinion isn't just millions of individuals thinking freely. It's shaped by the groups we belong to.
And within those groups, our own beliefs seem perfectly rational.
Invariably, he says, we defend our group's views as logical and see opposing views as unreasonable. The differences often come down to fundamental assumptions we pick up from our herd, our group.
So it's hard to see the flaws in your own group's thinking when you're inside it.
Extremely hard. The rationality seems flawless from within. Things that look obvious to an outsider are invisible.
Which brings up that age-old question. Is public opinion fixed, like human nature, or can you actually change it?
Bernays acknowledges that debate. People say you can't change human nature, but then you look around.
And you see, institutions do change opinions all the time. Family, school, the media, ads.
Exactly. They clearly modify how people think and behave, but it's not always easy.
He uses the press example again, right, with Mayor Hyland in New York.
Yeah, most of the press was against Hyland, but he kept getting reelected. It showed the press wasn't all powerful. The public could be stubborn.
Meaning other influences were stronger in that case?
Must have been. It shows the limits. And the press itself isn't totally free, is it? It has its own constraints.
Like what?
Well, public prejudices influence what they cover. Advertisers have clout. They want to reach a certain quality public. So the press both shapes and is shaped by public opinion.
So it's an interaction, a constant back and forth.
Exactly. He calls it a continuous action and interaction. Newspapers like the New York Times deciding what's fit to print are already reflecting some kind of consensus, some public standard.
So the Public Relations Council needs to understand both sides of that equation.
Yes. You need to align your message with the standards of the media channel and with the public's fundamental understanding. He says the public leads institutions just as much as the other way around.
That makes sense. And real influence often comes from tapping into viewpoints that already exist.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Look at the Rockefeller Foundation fighting hookworm. They didn't invent medicine. They used established medical principles, education, analysis. They worked with existing viewpoints about science and health to change habits.
And when newspapers boast about campaigns that led to laws,
they're showing that same interaction. They advocated for something the public was perhaps ready for and helped push it over the line, aligning with the current.
Now, Bernays gets into psychology quite a bit with stereotypes. These are mental shortcuts.
Basically, yeah. They save us effort. You hear capitalist or Boy Scout, and an image pops into your head instantly. Pre-packaged ideas.
And PR uses these.
Heavily. Stereotypes are the building blocks. They come from what we see and hear, mixed with what's already in our heads, our culture.
But they can also lock us in, right? Groups thinking their own standards are the only right ones.
Absolutely. Resistance to understanding other viewpoints. It leads to misinterpretations, deeply entrenched beliefs. It's why groups can seem so illogical to each other.
He also talks about the crowd mind. Is that just people in a physical crowd?
Not necessarily. It's a state of mind where people think and act alike, even remotely. Readers of the same paper, listeners to the same broadcasts.
And this crowd mind has certain traits.
He says it boosts for itself, claims moral superiority, wants to dominate. Leaders often intuitively promise ultimate victory to tap into that.
And it's not just ignorant people.
No. He says it permeates society. It explains why popular opinion can be both very positive about its own side and very intolerant of others.
And the herd instinct ties into this. Survival homogeneity.
Yes, the idea that sticking with the group has survival value. It creates the herd point of view. Lippmann's idea comes back here too. We often define things first, then see them.
Picking out what fits our predefined stereotype.
Exactly. Perceiving things in the stereotyped ways our culture has taught us.
And this underlying gregariousness, our social nature, it has consequences.
Big ones. Intolerance of being alone, high sensitivity to the voice of the herd, what people think, what's moral, susceptibility to group passions, panics.
Following leaders, sometimes questionable ones.
And needing recognition from the group. Belief itself, he suggests, is almost our default state. We tend to accept affirmations more easily than rejections, especially if they come from within our herd. Suggestibility is constant.
Okay, so given all this complexity, stereotypes, herd instinct, fragmented audiences, how does a public relations council actually reach people effectively?
Well, direct communication was easier in simpler times, smaller communities. Now, with diverse populations, creating a single common will is really tough.
Society breaks into different crowds with different values, different worlds almost.
Exactly. And physical distance complicates it too. So the council has to subdivide the appeal, tailor the message, and crucially, use the existing avenues of communication.
The channels people already trust and use.
Yes. People accept facts and ideas more readily when they come through those accustomed channels. You have to meet them where they are.
But society isn't static, right? People belong to multiple groups.
That's the key insight. Society isn't just two opposing camps, like capital versus labor. Individuals are in many groups based on hobbies, religion, location, profession. These groups overlap.
So that overlap creates opportunities.
Exactly. It allows for multiple kinds of appeals to reach the same person, hitting different aspects of their identity and interests. It allows the council to get around group inertia.
And people's ideas can change gradually within those groups.
Yes, progress often happens through rearrangement of thought within groups, not by suddenly throwing out old ideas. People aren't totally locked into any single group identity. That flexibility, that inconstancy makes them receptive.
It creates an opening for consciously modifying public opinion.
Right, and external changes matter too. A new invention like the radio or the car changes people's interests, how they see the world. That creates new openings to influence reactions.
And you can appeal to basic instincts, like competitiveness.
Pugnacity, yes. Used in contests, campaigns framed as battles against some evil, and gregariousness, the social instinct. That's why leveraging group leaders comes in.
Getting the leader of an existing trusted group on board with a new cause.
Exactly. Their influence can carry their followers along. It's a powerful multiplier.
But in today's world, just having a message isn't enough. You need to get noticed. This leads to Bernays' idea of creating news.
Yeah, the council has to make their issues stand out from the noise. Abstract ideas don't grab headlines. They need to be simplified, dramatized.
Made into something concrete, an event.
Precisely. An appeal that taps into those basic instincts strongly enough to cut through all the other competing stories in the media, that becomes news.
So the PR Council isn't just reacting to news, they're actively making it.
He says the council is a creator of news. They isolate an idea, then develop it into an event designed to get attention and a positive, instinctive reaction.
Like the newspaper headlines and cartoons we talked about. Simplifying complexity.
It's analogous, yes. They analyze the complex issue, simplify it, and create a visual or symbolic replacement that people can grasp quickly.
So the real skill is spotting these underlying public tendencies, maybe before they're even fully formed.
And crystallizing them. Creating symbols the public will respond to. That's where the value lies.
Of course, this raises ethical questions, doesn't it? Creating news, managing perception.
Bernays addresses ethics, absolutely. He acknowledges news is vital, people crave it. The press has a crucial role in uncovering uncomfortable truths for democracy to function.
And the press agent, or public relations council, became important because there is discretion in how facts are reported, how impressions are shaped.
Exactly. Organizations realize they needed someone to manage that process, to present their side effectively.
So understanding how media works, the different departments, their angles, is essential.
Critical. But it's more than just knowing news value. It's being able to make news happen by creating those events we talked about.
And it's not just the press, right?
Yeah.
He mentions other channels.
Oh, yeah. Radio, lecture platforms, great for reaching specific groups and staging dramatic moments. Advertising, obviously. Even stage plays, movies, educational films, newsreels back then. Word of mouth, leveraging those group leaders again. Direct mail, too. All tools in the toolbox.
But ethically, where does the council draw the line?
Bernays is clear on this. While you represent your client, your duty to your own integrity and to society as a whole is paramount. You shouldn't push a client's agenda if it violates your own moral standards. Your own judgment comes first.
That's a really important point.
Crucial. It's about responsible advocacy.
Well, as we can see, diving into crystallizing public opinion really does offer these, well, timeless insights, doesn't it? Understanding groups, creating news. It's a framework that still holds up.
It really does. The technology changes, the speed changes, but the underlying human psychology, the group dynamics, Bernays was onto something fundamental.
Absolutely. So for you, the learner, think about these principles. How do they apply in your world, your business, your community? What stereotypes are active? How could you ethically create news that resonates?
It's fascinating stuff to ponder, and this is really just scratching the surface of Bernays and the whole field of understanding public opinion and communication.
Definitely just the tip of the iceberg. For more deep dives, more resources to help you navigate the small biz world and communication challenges, do check us out at www.smallbizjunkie.com.
There's always more to learn.
Thank you for listening to the Small Biz Junkie podcast.